all fiction has to be as honest as you can make it. This, I believe. This may not be true for every other writer out there. It may not be true for any other writer there, but it's true for this writer. You have to make it as honest as you can, because that's what people respond to. As far as I'm concerned, any success I have achieved as a writer of fiction, I have achieved because I'm an honest writer of fiction, because my people are real people, because you care about them. The hardest time for me was starting out as a very, very young writer. I wrote short stories and I sent them out to places that could conceivably publish them, and they all came back. And I looked at the stories which went out and came back, and went out and came back. And I thought, okay, well, one of two things is true here. Either I'm not good enough, or I don't understand the world. The stuff I don't get, and the stuff I need to know. And I thought, okay, so as of today, I am now a freelance journalist specializing in the world of publishing and fantasy and science fiction. And I decided I was a journalist because I thought that gives me license to ask questions. It gives me license to go out into that world and meet everybody, find out who everybody is, find out what they do, find out how they read, to learn. And then I got invited to my first writer's workshop. It was the Milford Writers' Workshop, and I was sitting there with a bunch of fantastic writers like Gwyneth Jones and Diana Wynne Jones and Mary Gentle. And I realized very, very quickly that my reactions to stories were things like, I like this, or I don't like this, or this is good. That wasn't their reaction. They were responding to stories on a much deeper level. They were reading different stories to what I was reading. And I realized I was reading the stories as an audience. And they were reading stories as craftspeople, as people who built these things, as people who did this. And I also realized I was wrong. I was wrong if I wanted to be a writer. And they were right. And that experience, more than anything else, I think changed me. And it changed me mostly because I realized that in order to write fiction, I needed to be honest. Up until that point, I had a facility with voices. I could do essentially impressions of other writers. I could write things that felt kind of like things that other writers would have written and written well. But I didn't have anything to say. And that wasn't because I hadn't lived. That was because I wasn't really prepared to say anything true about who I was. I didn't want to be judged. I didn't want people reading any of my stories to know who I was or what I thought or to get in too close. And I realized that if you're going to write, if you're going to be a successful writer, at least if you're going to be the kind of writer who did the kind of stuff that I was going to do, you had to be willing to do the equivalent of walking down a street naked. You had to be able to show too much of yourself. You had to be just a little bit more honest than you were comfortable with. And if people judged you, if they felt they knew who you were, that was just something that you were going to have to live with. And what was strange is once I started doing that, and I was expecting to be judged or shunned or people's opinions, or to have to deal with things, and what I discovered was actually their opinions were we really like this. We love this story. It's a good story. It felt huge. It felt personal. And I realized that's because I was being honest about me. And some things, when you get really specific, apply to so many of us. So that was how I took my darkest period and eventually turned it around.